Hey guys, Ben here from Velflex. Now I've got a tip for you guys that's hopefully going to help a lot of you out. It's around removing the square heat marks, or one major cause for the square heat marks that we often get on our garments, and we don't know how to get rid of them or how to move them, that sort of thing. And one of those things is pressure, and I'm going to explain why we are getting these pressure heat marks, particularly when we're trying to do a small isolated area like a left chest onto a polo or something like that, and it's all to do with pressure. Guys, I'm going to sort of explain how this works, right? We've got the STX20 right here. It's a 16 by 20 inch or the 40 by 50 centimeter plate. Now, when I pull this down and lock it into I've got a pressure reading here of 3, okay? And if I pop that up, if I increase this down a little bit, I'll now lock it in. I've got a pressure reading of 7. Now, 7 on the STX right here is equivalent of 70 PSI, okay? 5 would be the equivalent of 50 PSI, okay? That's how this machine works. So when I'm pressing, if I was pressing with a full plate, and I'm getting a 5, 6 or 7, I'm going, yep, I've got medium to firm pressure. That's exactly what I want. Now, let's just say we had this polo right here, and what we're afraid of is the buttons down the middle, okay, taking some of that pressure. So what we want to do is we go, let's grab, and I've got a whole box of silicone pads and things like that. Let's grab a little pad here, okay, and we'll sit it there, and what we're going to do is we're going to isolate that area so that when we press it, okay. Now normally I'd tape it in place and so it doesn't move around or anything like that, but just for purpose sake, I've put the pad here, okay? Right, I'm also, because I understand about the whole rocking and because the top plate is center pinned, I have to have the plate balanced to get even pressure. So I'm gonna take something similar, I'm gonna put it at the back here. Cool. Now, if I put a transfer right here and press this, and I haven't changed the pressure, or if I was to pull this down now, let's pull it down. I've put these pads in place, okay? So when I pull this down, I've raised the height. Gee, that's a lot of pressure. I'm gonna have to drop this back, okay? Right, still a lot. I'm gonna keep dropping it back. Right, whoop, we got 8. And what I'm gonna do is drop it back a little bit more so that I get, here, I've got 7, okay? Now, most people, when they've used these little pads, what they do is they change the height or they change their pressure to reduce it back to what they expect they need, which if they're pressing a really big plate, 5, 6 or 7, now I've put these in, let's reduce it back and get it back to that 5, 6 or 7. And then they do a heat press. They've got their logo, they put it here, and what they end up with is this square, and they're like, oh, how do I get rid of that? Well, first off, what we need to do is talk about that pressure. And I'm gonna give you a little analogy, okay? Okay, and I can see that little heat mark right there from me just pressing it right now. I'm gonna give you an analogy of, just imagine this big plate here is 10 people, right? 10 people all huddling together. And what I do is I give a 100 kilo box and I put it on top of them, and all 10 people are holding it up in the air. Think of that as our pressure at 7, okay? Cool. I'm then gonna remove 6 of those people, leaving only 4 left to hold the 100 kilo box, okay? That's the equivalent of me putting some pads down, okay? This is the big area, 10 people. Now I'm gonna reduce it down to a much smaller area, just using these little pads, okay? Which is a bit like removing 6 people, and it's only got 4 people left. With the 4 people that are still holding the 100 kilo box, do you think it feels heavier? Absolutely, of course it would. It'd be much heavier holding that 100 kilo box up, right? It's exactly the same thing here. If I have 7 or 6 on my pressure dial, the same as I would with a big plate, but I'm only using little ones, it is absolutely a lot heavier. There's a lot more pressure being focused into these small little areas trying to hold the plate up. So what we end up with is these big square marks that we're not used to getting, okay? So if we're isolating down into a smaller area, we need to reduce the pressure, okay? So if I was pressing with little pads like this, I'm not looking for 5, 6 or 7. In actual fact, I'm probably wanting to aim for 3 to 4 as a max, okay? The smaller the area that you're pressing, the less pressure that you need. And look, it is going to be a little bit of a suck it and see, a little bit of testing to see if you're getting the right amount of pressure. But what's important is if you're getting these heat marks, okay, if you can see that you're getting a big heat mark from pressure, you've obviously got too much or you've got a lot of it. Now, guys, this is simple to think about when we're going from a big plate down to and we're putting these little isolated little pads on. But what if we reduce it down into a smaller plate, right? So take this big one off, sit that right here, and just imagine I put one of these little plates on, just like this one here. Okay, locked it in, done. Exactly the same. If I was doing that so that I could slide this on, right? And this is what some people are doing, is they're using a little pad just to press a transfer right here so they've got all of the polo off. You are putting all of the pressure from the top plate into this little area, and absolutely it's going to feel a lot heavier. So what I'm doing, this is a much smaller area, I might reduce the pressure down where I've got a 2, okay? Now, got no pressure there whatsoever, because this slightly different heighted plate. A little bit more. There we go. Cool. Now a 2 doesn't look like a lot on the SDX. You think, oh gee, that's not a lot of pressure. But that 2, when pressed down into this tiny little area, is most likely the equivalent of a 5 when you're pressing onto that really big plate. So guys, if you're getting square heat marks, okay, if you're using little silicone pads to sort of isolate an area, or you're using a little plate, got to remember that you need to reduce the pressure down on your machine. It feels a little bit weird to do it, but you are absolutely focusing all of that pressure from the top plate into that small little area, and so you've got to compensate for that. Guys, if you're having pressure issues or having any issues with getting these heat marks and things like that, reach out to us, shoot us a call, give us an email, more than happy to help. Cheers, guys.